Hi, and welcome to this section on cultural adjustment, American culture, and relationships. At this time, if you can, please access the International Orientation Guide, which is available in a PDF form on the orientation page, and follow along on page 17. Beginning on page 17, we're going to discuss culture shock. Culture shock describes the anxiety that a person experiences when they move from a familiar culture to an entirely new culture or social environment. Everyone experiences culture shock at some point when they are living within a new culture. And it is important to reach out when you need help and to take advantage of the resources available to you. What causes culture shock? For someone who is new to a new country or a new place, there are the things that are easy to see, the obvious things, such as language differences, differences in food, dress, holidays, folklore, and arts. But there's also the things that are very difficult to see, the hidden parts, the iceberg under the surface of the water, such as beliefs and assumptions, values, the meanings of body language, humor, personal space, self-concept, pride, manners, beauty ideals, work ethic, biases, thought patterns, and gender roles. And this is considered the small C culture, not the big C culture. As you may have already noticed in your time here in America, whether you've been here a short time or you've been here for many years and you're now continuing in a new degree program at the University of Alabama, there is a period of cultural adjustment. And that period of cultural adjustment typically follows a very specific pattern. For you, right now, after having just arrived in the U.S. or just arrived to Tuscaloosa, your new home, you're in your honeymoon phase. The first few weeks of any time in a new place can always be considered a honeymoon phase. Many people think that maybe this is the time in which they're going to have the greatest cultural struggles. And while there might be some difficulties, of course, financially and logistically, this is not the time where cultural adjustment is really a challenge. It's not until a little bit later, usually a few months after your arrival to a new culture, where you start to enter into true conflict and culture shock. Typically at the 2-month mark is where it's going to be the most difficult and challenging. And you may find yourself wondering, why did I come here? Am I really meant to be here? And that's a normal reaction. I have to really and truly stress that this is an adjustment process. It is not something that is going to be an easy route. And for some, it might be a little bit more challenging than others. But at the same time, it is something that is a typical process that we all go through. And the important thing to know is you do go through a period of recovery and full adjustment. And to the point where typically at around 6 months, you start to feel at home. There is a norm to your new home. But your time here will follow this pattern generally in the first semester of your stay in a place. Now, the other part of the U-curve you'll see here has marked honeymoon and conflict and recovery. And the reason for that is when you return home, your entry back to the home culture or re-entry to the home culture, after you have adjusted to a new place, going home goes through that same process. You'll go through a honeymoon period where your return home is great. You're able to eat the foods that you missed and see your friends that you've missed. But then you'll go through a period of real struggle because you've adjusted to a new life and a new place and new expectations of life. Now, of course, this is not a very scientific chart. Everybody's experience will be different. But just knowing that this is the pattern of adjustment that most people feel or go through when they're making their way through culture shock and cultural adjustment, I find really helps. How to cope with culture shock? I find it most important to remember that this is normal. You're not alone. You may think that others are handling their cultural adjustment better. Maybe you and other students have arrived at the same time and you look at your friends and it seems like everything is okay. But I can almost promise you that deep down they're going through these same things. They may hide those emotions and those anxieties very well, but they're going through some real difficulties as well. And the fact that you're not alone and that this is normal should be actually a reassurance for you. There are many things that you need to be aware of as you're making these adjustments and things that will help you in coping with culture shock. And one of those things is make sure that you're eating and sleeping and exercising. Those basic things help a lot. Having those routines, not ignoring your basic health needs physically as you make these adjustments. It's also important to talk to someone from your home country. Keep those ties. Luckily, we have many different apps that allow us to continue to keep in touch with the people who are most important to us from back home. Now, there might be time zone differences that make that communication a challenge, but at least we can talk with each other. You can also connect with people from your home country here in Tuscaloosa. Also, get involved on campus. The more involved and engaged you are, the better for your overall adjustment. You'll feel a sense of belonging just by taking part in activities that are available to you. So don't be afraid to try something new. If you see something on the calendar here at the University of Alabama or you see something in our newsletter, please know that you're always welcome to these events. These are the things that will help you feel a part of the community. And don't forget to spend time with Americans. If you've come from far away and you've come to the United States, I am certain that it was with the intention of making connections with other Americans. And I understand how difficult that can be to make that connection. But reaching out and connecting with others, connecting with your host culture, learning more about Alabama from an Alabamian perspective, learning about America through an American lens, will help you better connect with the place where you live now. And you can share your experiences and your history and your culture with them as well. Now, it should be noted that you can always seek help. Here at the university, we have the UA Counseling Center, and it's an excellent resource for you. You can find their website at counseling.sa.ua.edu. When you need to see them, you can go visit them at their physical address, which is at 1101 Jackson Avenue, which is the South Lawn Office Building in Suite 3000. You can reach out to them by phone at 205-348-3863. And if you have an emergency after hours, you can be put in touch with their counselor on call at 205-348-5454. You can also text BAMA to 741-741, and that'll allow you to text with a trained volunteer. Students often have to seek the Counseling Center, and not necessarily when they're in crisis. The Counseling Center's resources, they are mental health resources, but they're from a talking perspective. There is not any kind of judgment or stigma behind this. What they do is they talk to you just like an academic advisor would, but they talk to you about your life. So if you're struggling with your adjustment, just be aware that's what they're there for. They're very used to students who are going through a big change in their lives, such as a move to a new university in a new state or a new country. And they understand that that is a challenge that you have to face, but you don't have to face it alone. Another thing that I wanted to go over was understanding American culture. American culture is unique, and it sometimes is a difficult one to navigate and to understand well. If you can, turn to page 8 of your International Orientation Guide, where we'll pick up on the Understanding American Culture section. Now, American cultural values are difficult to sum up, and please be aware that anything shared here is really just a generalization. American cultural values very much places emphasis on individualism. There is a lot of effort given to individual expression and individual contributions, and an expectation of recognition for those individual achievements through reward. We believe very much in equity. That leads to sometimes an interesting phenomena where professors are a little bit more casual in their interactions with their students because there's less of a division and hierarchy of rank in the United States. We are extremely time conscious. For the U.S., time is important. There's a phrase, time is money. Time is the most important thing for most Americans, that we are timely and that we make sure to meet our obligations on time, that we meet our expectations to arrive on time and to complete tasks on time. And that we have what we would consider casual friendships. There are different friendships. Close friendships are a little rarer among Americans, where we as a culture tend to only have one or two really close friends. whereas we have many casual friendships. And so you'll find yourself sometimes crossing campus and you'll see people who smile and say hello, and they'll talk very casually about what's going on, the weather or any news, but they may not get into in-depth conversations. This is typical for most Americans as they get to know you, and then they become a little closer with you and hopefully open up more and more. No doubt you've probably seen many, many American films and TV shows, and it may have given you one idea about how Americans interact with each other. And that behavior is not necessarily how most Americans interact with each other. We often will say, "Hi, how are you?" as we walk past each other without an expectation that somebody responds, other than a smile or an acknowledgement. This may be in other cultures an invitation to a conversation, but here in America, these are just passing comments. It's just there is no expectations to stop and enter into in-depth conversation. We tend to also go into small talk. We stick with comfortable topics that are not controversial. Most Americans will avoid topics of conversation that include politics or religion or financial matters, personal financial matters. They tend to stick to conversations about the weather, about sports, about travel, about very simple things. And that allows them to find commonality even if they may not share the same religious views or same political views. And that way they can avoid those types of conflict. That is not uncommon among even close friends, but it is a different experience. Personal space is also very different in America. In general, Americans, because they are individualistic and because we live in this big open country, there are expectations that we have a general amount of space around us. And it's the personal space requirements for an American are often much larger than they might be when you travel abroad. I myself lived abroad for several years, and where I lived, the personal space was within maybe 1 or 2 feet, so less than a meter, like a half meter. Whereas in America, there is a general 3 feet bubble around us as we walk, this invisible bubble that we have that we consider our personal space. And that when somebody steps into that personal space, we tend to be put off guard as Americans. We want to recreate that space, and so sometimes we back up. For a lot of people, having someone get too close might be a little uncomfortable for them. So being aware that there is this weird and very real 3 feet invisible bubble around most people is helpful. And this is mainly in like public spaces. So when you're interacting with your professors or fellow students, having a little bit of a distance, almost a little bit more than an arm's length each between you, is very comfortable for most Americans. When you're shopping, giving people space around you and being mindful of those spaces, that's fairly important. On the topics of profanity and taboo gestures, again, going back to movies and television, you may have seen people use profanity very openly in work settings in movies and in work settings in television or in the classroom, using rude gestures and things like that. And it's meant for comedic effect or for exaggeration. This typically never happens in an actual day-to-day setting. That this is considered extremely rude and would not be acceptable in any professional setting or educational setting. So don't be fooled to think that those things that are commonly portrayed in media, in movies, and in television are acceptable in day-to-day life. Another challenge for many people coming into a university setting is interpersonal relationships. If you can, please follow along on page 11 of the International Orientation Guide where we touch on this. During your time at the University of Alabama, it is possible that you may meet someone, and interpersonal relationships operate a little differently in America than they may operate in other places. What's important to note, in the U.S., consent is required. With regards to sexual misconduct and abusive relationships, that is absolutely not tolerated. If you're in an abusive relationship, or you see a friend who's in an abusive relationship, or if you witness sexual misconduct or harassment, those are things that should be reported. We have this website here, ua.edu/campuslife/UACT or UACT, where you'll find information about how to report abusive relationships, sexual misconduct, or harassment, whether it be personal relationships or interactions with fellow students, our faculty, our staff here at the university. This is not tolerated by the University of Alabama, and you have resources to help you. With that, I wanted to share with you a short video about consent. This will better help you understand consent in the context of interpersonal relationships.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they go, "Oh my God, I would love a cup of tea. Thank you." Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you could make them a cup of tea or not, but be aware they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important part, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you are entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say no thank you, then don't make them tea at all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, "Yes, please. That's kind of you." And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time that it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind. And you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they're unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea. And they can't answer the question, "Do you want tea?" because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea. And they said yes. But in the time it took you to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down. Make sure the unconscious person is safe. And this is the important part again. Don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they're safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it going, "But you wanted tea last week." Or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, "But you wanted tea last night." If you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you're able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand it when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea.
If you find yourself in need of help, there are multiple ways to get help here at the university. One is to call the UA Police Department at 205-348-5454. This is a 24-hour line. They will answer it every day of the year. You can call them at any time, and they can put you in touch with emergency resources, whether it be the on-call dean, or if in an immigration emergency, they can put you in touch with an advisor from the International Student and Scholar Services Office. They can also put you in touch with the Counseling Center and other resources here on campus. If you need to report any sexual misconduct or harassment, you can get in touch with Equal Opportunity and Title IX programs. Their website is title9.ua.edu. That is TITLEIX.ua.edu. You can also get in touch with Women and Gender Resources Center, which is wgrc.sa.ua.edu. Their phone number is 205-348-5040. Don't forget, you should also have installed on your phone the UA Safety app. The UA Safety app can be accessed at ready.ua.edu/safety-app, and it's available for iOS and Android devices. About the University Police Department, again, their phone number is 205-348-5040. 5454. That is available 24 hours, day or night, all year long, and it's available for emergency and non-emergency assistance. Go ahead and pull out your phone right now and add the contact for UA Police and add the number 205-348-5454. It's one of the most important numbers that you can have on hand, and you should have it programmed in your phone before you need it. You can also find their information at police.ua.edu, and they have a great Safer Living guide. This is available at saferliving.ua.edu, and that talks a lot about tips for safety and just basic tips for protecting yourself and your property. The Women and Gender Resource Center is located on the South Lawn Office Building in Suite 2000. That's near the East Edge Apartments and the Law School on the East Edge bus route. Now, they are located in the same overall building where the Counseling Center is located and other resources are, and very close to the University Police Department. Their phone number is at 205-348-5040, and again, their website is wgrc.sa.ua.edu. You can email them at wgrc@ua.edu. You can find their Twitter handle for their programming and activities that they offer at wgrc@ua, and their Facebook page, UAWGRC. The Women and Gender Resource Center has a victim advocate on call 24 hours a day. They are available to offer accompaniment to the hospital to provide emotional support and guidance during the sexual assault forensic exam. They do academic advocacy, negotiating changes in classes, workload, and making up missed classes or exams. They can help you find safe housing and relocation within the on-campus housing system or community-based housing as needed. And they have resources providing information about campus or community resources, legal and judicial options, as well as just general support. The Equal Opportunity and Title IX programs offices are located in Capitol Hall in room 2418. Their phone number is 205-348-3947. And again, their website is Title9, TITLEIX.ua.edu. You can find their contacts and staff and the sexual misconduct policy that applies to all students, faculty, and staff of the university. Title IX is a concept that is maybe new to anyone who is new to the United States. Title IX refers to the Title IX of the Educational Amendments of 1972, and it is a comprehensive federal law that prohibits discrimination based on the gender of students and employees of educational institutions that receive federal financial assistance. In the code, it says, no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So in accordance with Title IX, the University of Alabama does not discriminate on the basis of gender in any of its programs or services. The university is committed to providing an environment free from discrimination based on gender and expects individuals who live, work, teach, and study within this community to contribute positively to the environment and to refrain from behaviors that threaten the freedom or respect that every member of our community deserves. Besides these resources, you always have International Student and Scholar Services as a resource. As a reminder, our hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. Walk-in and virtual advising hours are available Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We're located in 105 B.B. Comer Hall. You can always find us online at international.ua.edu/ISSS or email us at international@ua.edu or call us at 348-5402.